Hi everyone, Joe March here from the Grand Infinity, and today I'm talking to Lord Josh Allen. We're going to be talking about a few very interesting subjects, especially Eastern magic. Some stuff I don't know a lot about, and that is always my favorite type of topic. But before we get into that, Josh, why don't you tell us a little about yourself?
Yes, thank you. My name is Lord Josh Allen, and that is actually not a stage name. I am a real lord, and I've got documentation to prove it. A lot of people might take a look at my channel and think that I put a great emphasis on materialism, outfits, robes, tools, spiritual fans.
Hmm.
But I think that that kind of thing really puts you into the intense frame of mind because I am not a fan of stationary magic. I
Yeah.
like to get up, I'm very physical, and that is how I do my spells.
Hmm.
And that's basically how Taoist weather magic works as well.
Okay. And would you like to bring up where people can find you if they're looking for you online as well?
Yes, my YouTube channel is Lamat771, and the rest of my accounts are all Lord Josh Allen.
Okay.
Everything else.
Very cool. And I know that you're into a lot of the more Eastern version of magic and mysticism. So would
Yeah.
that be correct to say?
That would be correct to say because I follow a Taoist path, but I'm
Mhm.
not necessarily a Taoist. I wouldn't label myself in that particular category.
Right.
But I do practice Chinese magic. I'm a feng shui master,
Hmm.
and feng shui basically means wind water.
Hmm.
And that's a big part of weather magic because when you're controlling the winds and you're trying to summon the rains, that definitely comes into it. And the reason why I was pulled into the direction of Chinese magic is because it's not as stationary as people might think. I don't particularly enjoy the conventional meditation.
Hmm.
For me, meditation is a lot more tribal. It's a lot more physical. You're up on your feet, you're pacing. And that
Yeah.
really appeals to my personality because I like to move around a lot.
Yeah, that makes sense. And
Mm.
I've found that for myself when I'm doing things like evocation and stuff like that, that a lot of circumambulation, walking around in a circle, rocking and things like that help me to get into
Yeah.
states. So is
It's
it?
a way I think of just this kind of gentle motion
Hmm.
that it puts your mind into the motion. I mean, a lot of people will say also with the Eastern magic, they'll say there's power in stillness. But very often for me, my mind is very tenacious. And
Hmm.
look at a storm. Storms are tenacious. Storms are intense. You need to have that frame of mind.
Hmm.
You've got to have electricity running down your spine to do a lot of the things I do. And it really charges you up. And I've got some adverse side effects from practicing for about 10 years. I can't really sleep much anymore. I only sleep
Yeah.
about 4 hours a night. And I think it's because I've got too much energy coming through my body, especially at nighttime.
Do you find that it's a hazard at all to sleep less, or do you just feel like you have enough energy and you don't need more sleep?
Yeah, I feel I've got enough stamina. I don't like sleep. I never did, really. I think it's kind of a waste of time. I don't like food. If it was up to me, I would go without food and sleep because I think it slows people down. That's just my opinion.
Hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, when you talk about magic, I'm not the kind of person who prefers to relax
Right.
when I practice. I practice to feel alive,
Yeah.
and I practice to feel a buzz. If that makes sense to you.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm not an adrenaline junkie. I'm not doing this because I like to feel absolutely incredible like God. But I do get a kind of fulfillment out of it with the heart racing,
Hmm.
sweat. It feels like you've just gone to the gym
Yeah.
and you've lifted weights. I love that. My father's a professional bodybuilder, and I think I get the discipline, the self-discipline from him.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I found
Yeah.
there's a lot of parallels in the in what one has to do in order to keep himself physically fit, and what one has to
Right.
do for these kind of mental activities and spiritual activities.
Are you the kind of person who prefers stationary magic?
I think I use a combination of the two, and I think it depends on my mood.
Hmm.
But I'm
Right.
definitely what I guess I would consider a hodgepodge person because I take from a bunch of different practices and put them together.
Like a
So
hybrid?
yeah.
Yeah.
And so I might use a sigil magic type of practice if I want to do something quickly, because I find that for me, sigil magic works really fast for what I want to get done, but usually for things that are quick and easy, not for something that's a long-term goal. If
Right.
if I want to do something more intense to have an experience, though, I'm going to do something more like evocation or just a straight out ritual to try to bring kind of like visions and things like that. That's going to take a lot more. That's usually going to be intense. It's going to involve walking around or going out into nature or something of that
Right.
nature.
Yeah, I like that a bit more, in my opinion. It just works for my personality. It's the way I'm wired.
Hmm.
Part of the unique path that I've taken is that I didn't have much of a choice in the fact that I became magically active. When I was about 10 or 11 years old, I believe, although I can't say for sure, I think I was possessed. And when I was in school one day, I was in the assembly hall, I collapsed and I passed out
Hmm.
completely, and I hit the ground so hard. And as I was out, as I was unconscious, I believe that the Josh Allen prior to that experience died. The original me just ceased to exist. And in that place, there was a deity.
Hmm.
And I want to talk about this specific individual because I feel that just like Taoist weather magic, this individual is very, very obscure in the Western world. His name is Zhuge Liang, Kong Ming of the Three Kingdoms era. And I absolutely owe my life to Kong Ming. And a lot of people, a lot of occultists like to work with different entities throughout the years.
Hmm.
I've only ever worked with two,
Hmm.
Zhuge Liang and Lamont, and I consider them not to be spirits anymore. I view them as spiritual brothers, and
Hmm.
I see them as an equal to myself. I have such a deep, profound love for both of these, I guess you could call them entities, and
Yeah.
I've gotten to know them so well. So please, everybody out there who's watching this, I urge you to look up Zhuge Liang Kong Ming. He's incredible. Huge inspiration to me as a magician.
Hmm. Yeah, and I can understand what you mean by the love. It's something that I've been exploring recently.
Right.
With my work with the Morgan, I've had this, I've talked about it a few times, and I'm sure maybe you've already heard. But at the
Mhm.
end of that work, there was this deep feeling of love that I got that is something that I can't explain using any language from
Right.
day-to-day life. And so I've been kind of seeking for that. Now, some people have called it Agrippa love because I guess Agrippa described this same sort of thing, but I don't know if that's what it is or not. I just know that there's this.
For me, it's faithfulness, it's loyalty.
Hmm.
Uh, for me, it's like being with somebody in a romantic relationship, and you should never really deviate, at least in my opinion. And that's not a Chinese belief whatsoever. That's just a personal belief of
Hmm.
mine. The
Yeah.
Chinese always work with different entities. But because I feel like I get all of what I need from
Yeah.
those two spirits, I don't feel the need to shop around anymore. That's just me.
Now, I found for myself in my practice that early in, when I was learning and doing different things, I was trying different stuff just to learn how it worked. And I was also trying to build up things like get myself the type of income I wanted, get myself the type of lifestyle I
Right.
wanted, all that stuff. But as that kind of all got, taken care of, bam, 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 it's moved into this, just naturally, it moved into looking for self awareness, looking for deeper self. But then from there, it's now moved into this question of what do I actually want? And it's not material. It's like, what do I want out of life? What do I want in the entire span of my life? What would I define as the thing that I want?
Right.
Not even
Yeah.
necessarily to accomplish, just to exist through, to experience.
Hmm.
And have
I
you
think
found
for
that same
me,
thing has kind of happened as you've progressed?
yeah, I think for me, and I might offend some people here, but I'm just being brutally honest. I am seeking power through
Hmm.
my occultism. I'm not particularly looking for peace or love like a lot of guys are. And I'm okay to admit that. Now, I consider myself to be a gray arts practitioner. I'm not black or white. I'm not polarized to either side.
Hmm.
I understand the beauty of walking the middle path. If you see this feathered Ming fan right here, you can see with the Bagua symbolism.
Yeah,
And I can
exactly.
use this for divination. And when you use a Kong Ming fan for divination, you can contact the I Ching oracle system. And the many interactions I've had with this system, they always come back, the Chinese ancestors, and they say to me, do not polarize yourself.
Yeah.
Do not extreme either side. And that's the way I live my life, not just magically, but personally. And like you said, bringing up finances, it's not a shameful thing to be successful.
Right.
It's not, people are afraid, they downplay their wealth. You should never do that. If you've worked hard for what you've got, you have a right to talk about that.
Hmm.
And I think in the culture that we live in today, we have a phony humility that all holds people back.
Yeah.
And I always say, if you're born into a working class background, you often hear from other people that you're not worthy of having money. And that's the kind of toxic mindset that keeps you poor.
Mm-hmm.
And that's politically incorrect to say, but it's true.
Yeah.
And people need to realize that.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And you can use magic to improve your finances as well, as you know.
Mm-hmm. Now I know that you were talking about the regalia that you have on now, and I've seen from your website and from your channel that you have a lot of different outfits and things. And I understand the concept. I understand the concept in Western magic that we may wear cloaks or robes or use the items like Aphame and stuff like that to help us get into the right mindset to pull us into the ritual, because the ritual is in a sense also a I don't want to say play, but it's not entertainment, but like a theatrical.
It's kind of a performance to the deities, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Well, for me, it's not just about the robes themselves. It's more to do with the symbolism that's actually on the robes, as well as the colors. So, for example, I've actually ordered some very nice Taoist black and white robes that I'm going to use for Tai Chi. And they've got the vermilion bird on there, which is very good for fire energy and summer and whatnot. So I'm going to be using that. But for me, I dress like this when I'm not practicing magic, because I say that a lot of people look up to heroes. They're always looking to others for inspiration and advice. And I say, if you can become your own comic book character and you can inspire yourself, and you are that colorful persona, then you can't go wrong. Self-sufficient. I'm self-sufficient in the way that I also live off of the land. I'm also a farmer. And I think if I want to remain inspired, I should look to going to myself at the end of the day. So yeah, the clothes are very important. They make me feel very powerful. Right. And they give me, they're like armor. It's like a suit of armor, spiritual suit of armor. And there's so many, I guess you could call it the placebo effect. I don't really care if it's placebo or if it's spiritual. The point is it works. And you get results off of it. And you can feel a difference in the way that your personality is. Right. Whether or not it's spiritual, I don't think that matters. At least not to me.
Yeah, I understand that. And I think if I've got you right from some of the videos I've watched, you also often claim to be a nonconformist, like one of those.
Oh, yes.
I nonconformist.
Spontaneity. I hate conformity. Yeah. I despise it. That's my main mission. Before I'm an occultist, I am a nonconformist. And people realize that. And I see so many people, and I hope to inspire them to escape the rat race. Because when you're in that 9-to-5 position, all of your creativity and your imagination is suppressed. And it sucks. It's sickening. Your soul is just grind away day by day in that office or when you're digging ditches. And I tell people to try to get themselves out of that situation. Be creative. Use your imagination. Exercise that muscle. It's important to development. And I tell them that in an intense way. And I don't apologize for being that way, because I think that when people are in a rut and you mollycoddle them, and you consider their sensitivities, they're not going to budge. They're not going to move. So you've got to do it in a kind way, yes, but sometimes you have to be cruel to be kind, and you've got to push them in that right direction. At least I believe so.
Yeah, like a tough love.
Yeah, tough love. On some of the forums that I go on, I used to have a nickname. It was the Sergeant of Spirituality. I have a very regimental way of dealing with the occult. And that might work for some people. It's certainly not going to work for everybody, but that's the way I am.
So let's get into weather magic, because I know it's not something I've ever practiced. And so it's something that I'm interested in just hearing about conceptually, what can be done, what sorts of things you've done, also what the practice is like itself.
Right. I'm going to ask you a little question here. There are two kinds of armies in the world. The first, the troops, the tanks. The boots on the ground. What's the second army?
It's up here, right?
The moon, the stars, the sun, lightning, the rivers, the lakes. You can use nature to do whatever you want if you can control it. A wise commander and a brilliant commander are two different things. A wise commander must know heaven and earth. He must know his own life, and he must know how to predict the changes. So if you can use the environment as an advantage, as a weapon and self-defense, and to fulfill your own life, you can do just that. And it's very possible. Say, for example, you could summon the wind. You can summon rain. You can call forth snow. It's up to you, and it depends on your intent. Now, a lot of people might say, well, what's the point in doing that? Isn't that kind of odd? I mean, it's epic, but what's the point? If you consider it in a more introspective, philosophical sense, that you are calling forth the rain to wash away the old, bring forth the new. So you're cleansing yourself of these old memories. You're getting rid of that grief. You can use the wind to blow through you and energize you, etc., etc. And that's basically what it is. So don't look at it on the surface level that you're just conjuring forth physical elements. It's all up here as well. It's all your personality and your own emotions. Before you attempt weather magic, you've got to calm the storms in your own psyche, the raging rivers within your own mind. That's what you need to calm first. And if you can do that, then you move on to the altar to do the real work.
Yeah. And I know from watching
Is that something you would do? Would you do that?
Well, I do work on what I would consider calming the mind and changing the self, what I've called spiritual alchemy, because you go through and you alter. It started out from a viewpoint of changing things you didn't like about yourself, but I don't like that terminology anymore because I don't think that's accurate. It's more like transmuting something that you see as a fault into a benefit. And so I've gone through that sort of practice in the past, and I continue to work with those practices as I find new things that are issues or things I need to deal with. And I continue to work through past traumas and things as I uncover those as well. And I find all of that to be probably the bulk of what I spend my time doing in the practice. It's more important to me than the other work that I do.
That's interesting. Well, basically, if you want to know how to perform weather magic, this is the thing about Taoist weather magic, because conventional Western weather magic, you can go outside, you can meditate, and most of it can be done simply by your intent. But if you want to do it the Chinese way, you want to use feng shui, it can be quite expensive. I must admit, these robes, these tools, they're not cheap. And most people do not venture that far into the occult because perhaps they're already looking for money and they don't have it yet. But with me, I've gotten to a point now where I have a lot of disposable income, and I can afford most of the time to go all out with my ritual. So I have in my back garden a beautiful 7-star altar. And this particular altar, you can see it on my pictures and on my YouTube videos. It's where I do all of my outdoor magic. And it's called the 7-star altar because it's all about the Northern Dipper and what people throughout the world call the Big Dipper, the Bushel, the Butcher's Cleaver, everything like that. And it's all to do with these stars. And the main reason why the stars are so powerful is because they also control life and death. The 7 stars are actually 9, 2 hidden stars. They're considered to be the accountants of the heavens. And they watch over and document every living mortal who's ever lived on Earth. And so I think that's really incredible to keep a good relationship with them. But if you don't keep a good relationship with them, it's like karma. They will come to collect. So my altar is a tribute to those stars. And I have flags with the stars on them. And the Northern Dipper is not a constellation. It's wrongly considered to be a constellation. It's actually an asterism. So if you get that wrong whilst you're performing the ritual, that's enough to get you in trouble. So the risk of weather magic, by using the wrong terminology and perhaps offending the stars or offending the deities by accident, that's enough for most people to be frightened off. So it's not the kind of magic I would recommend for somebody who prefers soft spirituality. If you like predictable results, if you like slow progress, you're not going to like weather magic because it's fast and tenacious, it's intense and it's lively, and it's not for everybody. So I'm just being real with you.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And I've always thought it was interesting to talk to
I tell you this as well. You want to talk about talismans. I've got to recommend these Kong Ming fans. don't confuse them with smudge fans. They're totally different. Smudge fans, you can only really use them for smudging. But the Kong Ming fans, I call them my universal remote, in the sense that I can plug them into anything. Self-hypnosis, weather magic, conjuration, everything. And they work universally, at least for me. And I've got quite a funny story. About 5 years ago, we were redecorating the house. And my father packed away my feathered fan, and I couldn't find it for about 5 days. And during that time, I had tremendous bad luck. I had panic attacks, I was depressed, I wasn't feeling good. And when I found my fan, all of that went away. Because one thing you must realize about me is I hold this in my hand permanently. This does not leave my presence. The only time I put it down is when I go to sleep or when I shower. Other than that, I hold it every single day, and I have done for the past 10 or 11 years. So it's like a companion to me at this point, more than just an item or an object. But yeah, talismans are very important. There's also the Northern Dipper amulet that you can find on the feng shui stores if you want to connect to the stars themselves. You should put that under your pillow if you want to have dreams about these astral bodies.
Yes, very interesting. Now, if someone wants to start getting into Chinese magic and things of that nature, do you have a recommendation for where they would begin?
Yes, Kong Ming. Definitely look up Zhuge Liang and look into his book, The Magical Lots of Zhuge Liang, and just try to immerse yourself into that world. I mean, there is a lot of culture shock. I will say that. That's part of the reason why I think most people are turned off of Taoism, is because it's not particularly friendly to newcomers from the Western world. It can be quite intimidating because of the language barrier and the culture. It's very alien compared to what we're used to over here. But it's so beautiful, and it's so deep. Step by step, guide by guide, you can learn to do anything in Chinese magic. If you're a person, if you're analytical, and you like precision, you like to know everything, and you like to know all the details, Chinese magic is never vague. And that's what I love about it. Whereas some of the Western magic, it's up to interpretation. Chinese magic leaves no room for doubt. So I'd say if you're going into it, start with Zhuge Liang, start with Kong Ming, and look at the books from there. There's a great book called Concealing Method of 3 volumes. Check that out. It's really good. Perfect for learning these arts.
Yeah. And it seems like, as you said, you wear the robes, you hold the fan almost all the time, so you basically live your magic all through the day.
Never stops. It never stops for me. And it hasn't stopped for years. And like I said to you, the Josh Allen, prior to my spiritual awakening, no longer exists. Because prior to that point, I was nothing like who I am today. I was a totally different person. I was quite weak. I was a conformist, and I admit that on my YouTube videos. I was the conformist that I talk about now. So I know what it's like to be in the rat race. I know what it's like to be an ordinary person. I wasn't born this way, but I did work to establish myself in later life, to becoming a lot more spiritual, and not just spiritual, but becoming powerful. I think that it's important for people to know that they are powerful, or at least have the potential to become that, if they exercise that muscle. And it all starts from the creativity. I watched a few videos of yours, and you always bring up the power of the imagination. And I think that pills, medications, particularly antipsychotics and antidepressants, they suppress it. They rot it away. I suffer from terrible migraines about twice a month. And I never take any pills for them, because I believe I've gotten far enough as I am now that when I take that pill, that's it. It's going to create a link in my mind that now I can just take this and it'll go away. And I think it erodes self-discipline. I think it erodes the ability to deal with challenges and problems using your own mind. So I always say no to drugs. It's not just pharmaceutical drugs. I don't like these so-called shamans who talk about using drugs either. I'm a very anti-drug person. I don't like that one bit. That's one thing about me. I don't agree with using the substances to get into that state of mind. You can do it on your own. It'll take longer, definitely. but you need to learn how to do it. It's like building up a physique when you're a bodybuilder. If you take steroids from the get-go and you start taking them, you will lose all of your progress. Build a natural physique, and that's your real muscle.
Mm-hmm.
Same with the
Yeah,
and you need resistance to grow. You absolutely need resistance. Don't take the easy path. If it's easy, keep looking. That's what I say. I'm not saying that you should suffer, but you need resistance. You need some weight.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to get stronger. That's the point of it, to become more powerful.
Yeah. I think in Western magic, there's a tendency to view it as when you're performing magic and you're in the circle, that's when you're the magician. And when you're out, you're not necessarily that you're not the magician, but that you're in a grounded, normal state or something of that nature.
Right.
That's kind of changed for me recently, but I believe that that's where a lot of people come from.
Yeah. I guess it just depends on if you're a person who has a lot of stamina and you can live on that mode all of the time, then you'll love it. Because I thrive off of it. I love it. But if you can't handle that, you might end up going crazy.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot of pressure. Because most people, they turn off, they switch off.
Yeah.
Whereas I don't like switching off. I don't like sleeping. So I never switch off. I'm always in that zone. And yeah, there's different levels of intensity. Don't get me wrong. I'm not always at the height of my game. But I'm never completely off. And that's where I think a lot of people lose touch. They have too many breaks. And breaks are good, but you just got to keep going. Consistency is the key. And the more consistent you are with your practices, the more progress you'll make. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and
I think also
go ahead.
About money. You talk about finances.
Sure.
There's a lot of, I don't want to sound elitist, but there's a lot of cutting corners that I've been reading in the last few years of people finding loopholes within pre-existing ancient systems. And I always say that you've got to be so careful you are not misled by these new age YouTube gurus. And because they really do thrive on, okay, here's an exploit that I found. Try it out for yourself. And I think that can be misleading to a lot of people. I say try it the ancient way. Go back to the books. They worked for the magicians thousands of years ago. They can work now. I think if you compare today's magicians to yesteryear's magicians, who's more powerful? I pale in comparison to Kong Ming. He's incredible. And if he lived today, he would be considered the Chinese Jesus, basically. So I think we have really, in a lot of ways, we've become weaker as a community, as an occult community. And that's because we're not intense enough. We are not intense enough. And I think we need to get more energy in us, literally.
Yeah. Do you feel that it's necessary for everyone to do it? Because that's something that I've always struggled with myself, is the idea that I know that we're all different individuals. I know that we all have our own paths, for example. But I struggle with the idea of, should everyone do magic? Or is it only for some of us?
Right. I agree with that, because I think that if we were all equal, which we're not, let's be honest, some people they just don't have a spiritual side. I mean, I've met so many people in my life, and they are like robots or like clones. And you're thinking, where did your soul go? Where did your spirit go? What happened to you? And for them, it never really comes back. Once the flame has been extinguished in the soul, it doesn't return, I don't think. If you let it go out, you're done. So do not squander the flame. And that's your potential to do great things in later life. I mean, what age were you when you first started to get really deep into practicing? I was 11 at the time. What about you?
Well, if we're talking about actually practicing using the Western occultism and things like that, it's only been 7 years that I've been doing it. But I started studying it when I was 16.
Right.
So my interest was there. And as I've gotten further in, I've had these moments where I'll have a realization about something that I've done all along, where you'll read about how to do something, and you'll realize that you've halfway been doing it maybe your whole life,
Mm.
but you were missing a couple key elements that make it work.
Mm.
And
Interesting.
I look
Yes.
back though, and I go, I don't know why I've always done these things like habitually in the past. So that's always made me wonder if, I don't know where people fall on the whole past life thing. I don't know where I fall on that, but it's made me wonder about that. Is there some influence from some past life or influence from some other beings or who knows
Right.
what that had me halfway there earlier than what I consider to be my start?
I think the past life philosophy is very beautiful, but in a lot of ways it gives people excuses to say, "Well, my life sucks. I'll just wait for the next one.
Yeah.
I won't get off this bus." And I think, no, this is your life right now.
Hmm.
If there is a next one, if there's an infinite amount of lives, work on all of them and make them all special.
Yeah.
Because I've heard from so many people, like the New Ages, they say to me, well, maybe next time I'll get a better shot. I'm thinking, no, the here and now is the perfect place to start. You've got to start now. And I think that's the biggest thing, too, in today's occultism. Contemporary occultism is all about theorizing,
Hmm.
not doing. And doing is the quality that really lifts you up. That's what
Yeah.
makes you powerful. So I make videos, and I do talk about my theories, but I always like to complement them with the action that's required to make it work.
Hmm.
Otherwise, it's incomplete. You can't have the yin without the yang. It just doesn't work that way. And I think people are much more, today, they're satisfied with having the knowledge but not using it. Knowledge needs to be used.
Hmm.
Don't let it stagnate in your mind. Your mind will go rusty. You got to use it, people. And it's the same way with your spiritual gifts as well. I think when you practice magic more often, you get better at it, and your levels of intensity will increase, I believe. Or they should, anyway.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with a magician by the name of Pope Runyon?
Yeah, I've heard of them.
I love him. I think he's incredible. He's an older guy. I think he's a Freemason. And I've watched all of his courses on YouTube. And he's one of the original YouTube occultists. And I love the guy. I think he's great. So I recommend to people out there, if you haven't heard of Carol Pope Runyon, check him out. He's really traditionalist and very ancient and very authentic. He goes all out like I do on my ceremonies.
Hmm.
So yeah, great guy.
Yeah, it's
What do you think about the power of color? Is there a color that speaks to you? Is it black and white? I'm just
yeah,
guessing. Oh, it is. I'm just guessing
yeah,
from your mug. And
right,
of
yeah,
course, your sigil, yeah.
yeah,
But for me, I would say the main colors for me would be probably red and gold.
mm,
Red, obviously, for the fire, and gold, I think, for the wealth, because I think wealth is a big part of my practices. I don't teach people how to get rich,
hmm,
but I tell them, I say that money is important in enabling you to follow your dreams. So say, for example, if you want to go into a complicated form of magic, like Taoist brother magic, you got to buy the robes, you got to have the altar built, you got to buy the tools, you got to have the time and the energy to do it, so away from work. How are you going to do that if you haven't got sufficient funds?
yeah,
You'd have to try money magic first to get to that point. So you know what I mean? It's kind of that game. It's
yeah,
like a numbers game in a lot of ways. And I think it's important to say this to the liberal-minded viewers out there. Don't go through life pretending that money doesn't exist and they're wishing for it, like saying, well, I don't agree with money. It's there. Deal with it. Use it to your advantage. Be resourceful in your life. Don't look at something and think, that's evil, I'm not using it. Transform it and make it work for you. You
yeah,
can do that with anything.
yeah,
That's my philosophy.
yeah, and that's part of why I like the black and white too, is because I always consider myself as well a gray magician, and so my view of it though isn't. Some people think a gray magician is someone who walks the fine line, but I would say it's exactly the opposite. It's someone who blurs into both sides and pulls them together. And
Yeah.
so, to me, those two colors being stark contrast is why I like them so much.
Yeah, me too. I remember a while ago I made a video, and it was, I think it was called The Power of Color. And at the time, I was very much against the color black, because I'm a very colorful guy anyway. I always
Hmm.
wear colorful clothes. And I would say to people, look, don't wear this color. It's not right. And later on in my life, I found out that I was very wrong, and I went back and corrected myself. I'm like, no, black is a powerful color.
Hmm.
It's the color of mystery and enigma. You've got to use it. So I was wrong about that, and I'm happy to admit it. But we don't know everything. Not one magician has all of the answers.
Yeah.
Not a single one. I think that you go to various people, and they will give you different flavors. And it's up to you then to put them together and make your own puzzle out of those pieces and decide what works for you. I think a lot of people out there don't look for one person on YouTube to get your advice. Try different ones and then come back to yourself and make that decision. But don't neglect the self. Don't try to emulate anybody you watch on YouTube down to a T, because that's conformity basically, and you're not being original, not being yourself. So definitely stick to the soul.
I'd say it goes in both directions too. That, on the one hand, you can't just buy into a single person's philosophy because they're still working on it. But on the other hand too, if you find a flaw in part of what someone's saying, don't throw out the entirety of what they're saying either. And I find people that do both of these two things.
Yeah, I think with me that a lot of people just think that I'm a very angry guy. I don't know why they think that. They watch my videos and say, Lord Josh seems always angry. And I'm not angry. I'm just very passionate about what I believe. And I think it comes across the wrong way to people. But I always say that if you want to do something, you've got to have that kind of kick-ass motivation behind you. Anything, not just magic, but financially, you've got to have it behind you to make it work. So get that zest in your body, people. Get your heart pumping. Feel alive. Don't sit around being depressed and moping and brooding on the past. I'm not a very nostalgic person. I live very much in the present. And I think a lot of people torture themselves, especially if you suffer from mental illness. And I've got a whole history of that. That if you live in the past, you will forever be sad and upset. So keep pushing forward, and most importantly, just stay grounded in the present. That's where your mood will pick up, and appreciate what you've got. I've just recently lost a loved one in the last 3 days, very unexpected. And in some ways, I've taken it for granted, the time I spent with this individual. Never, ever take anything for granted, because you'll regret that. And that comes from my heart.
Right.
Yeah,
I think some of the things that keep me from going deeper into my practice than maybe I do, and maybe it's not even correct to say that it stops me at all, but it keeps me from spending hours at a time doing things that I would if I had all the free time in the world, is my family. Because there's a realization that's happened to me, especially in the past year, that as much as all of the occult stuff that I do is important, so are they. And what I need to do is blend these two lives together. In other words, instead of saying, oh, I've got to meditate for an hour so I can't spend time with my family, find a way to have a sort of walking awake meditation while being with them. Integrate these things into your life. And it's not easy, and it's not simple, because there's not books, as far as I know, to teach you how to do this. But this is the type of stuff I'm experimenting with now. But that's why now it's leading me to what you were talking about, where you're living magically the whole time. It's just kind of happening naturally as a result. And so I didn't even know a year ago that could happen, but it's naturally occurring now.
I mean, if you're the type of person that likes balance and you want to have a fusion, a hybrid between both worlds, you can do that differently. But for me, I kind of just naturally slipped into being on all the time.
Yeah.
And I don't know now if I have the capability to switch off, to be completely honest with you. I don't think I could do that. It just wouldn't work for me. It's been too long. So this is the way I am, whether I like it or not. And I actually do like it, which is good. Which is very good.
Yeah,
but I think
there's certain... Oh, go ahead.
Can I just say this as well? This is very important. Diet. People out there need to understand that what you put into your body is a temple. And you need to purify it and look after it. Do your best, your absolute best. I've made so many videos and points on this before, to stay away from the GMOs, because I think there's been research done that GMOs really affect the pineal gland. That helps activate the third eye. So you've really got to look after yourself physically. Don't just put a whole emphasis on mind and spirit. Your body is there. Don't neglect it. Yes, it's a shell that holds your consciousness, but that doesn't mean you should neglect it. If you have a car, you don't let it break down, do you? You fix it. Well, it's the same way. Your body's a vehicle. Take care of it regularly.
Yeah, I agree with that.
People think that's like vanity. You tell people that and they say, no, that's materialism, that's vanity. No, it's not. That's just looking after yourself, earthly value. We exist.
Yeah.
Pretty incredible. I mean, it's also great that you have the internet as well now. Could you imagine what it was like for people back in the day to get advice, to look for information? You'd have to go to the library, and maybe the library wouldn't have what you were looking for. Now you can find almost anything on the internet with a quick Google search. It's truly tremendous. It's helped so many people. And people like us, we're out there talking about our versions of occultism.
Right.
Doing our part as well, trying to help the community.
Right, and that's why if I have some people that will come to me on Facebook through private message and things like that, and they'll ask me not specifically to teach them, but to kind of give them a step-by-step of how to do it, and I always refuse. Because it's not that I don't want to help them. It's that I don't want to, this is going to sound overly dramatic, but I don't want to taint their path. I don't want to take where they're supposed to go and redirect it, because we're each different enough, and that search is what helps you define your own path.
What do you say when people come to you and they ask you to do a ritual for them on their behalf? Do you ever do it?
No, I just tell them it's not something that I do. I think that's the easiest answer, because I've tried to get into why with some people before, and it always just goes down a rabbit hole of them getting angry for some reason or another that I've refused them. So instead, I just tell them it's not something I do for anyone.
I see.
Now that's partially true, because I do have friends that I will do things for. But it's not the same.
I was about to say that.
Yeah, it's not the same as someone coming to me on Facebook and saying, "Hey, I want to pay you to do a ritual," or I have an interesting experiment for you. And I'm like, I'm interested in the concept of an experiment that you think would be interesting, but I'm not going to engage you in this. I don't know you. I don't want to mix my energy with you. And
also, it could go wrong.
Right.
That's another thing. And could you imagine living with yourself and that kind of guilt that would come from potentially hurting somebody and making their situation worse? So I could live with that, knowing that I'd unintentionally hurt them, but still, I've hurt them.
And people will take it the wrong way if I say something like that. They'll take it as a slight, like I don't trust them or something, and it isn't that.
Right.
For me to do magic with someone requires me to resonate with them extremely strongly. I want to know we've got the same goals. I want to know we have the same views. I want to know we have the same idea of what we want in mind, because otherwise this is going to go sideways really easily.
Yes, that's true.
And so as a solitary practitioner, I don't tend to need other people involved in my magic, so I don't gravitate towards doing group activities like that.
I mean, talking about solitary, I think I give that a whole new definition, to be honest. Because I am a hermit. Everybody out there, I'm a real life hermit, and I have been that way for 5-6 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a lifestyle that people will look at and they'll think, oh, that's horrible, that's so depressing and morbid. But I think if you're a practitioner, you've got to be able to cope with your own company.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to be able to enjoy being on your own and pondering. Some of my best poetry, because I do poems and I write, have come from me being on my own, in seclusion for a very long time. And I think it's a mixture of madness and creativity.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're on your own, those thoughts become like phantoms. And I have these voices in my mind, and they give me rhymes to use for poetry. And I hear them just as I hear a person speaking. And that's a gift. That's an advantage. That's something I use to help my life. And I'm trying to get a book published for my poems, actually, at the moment. So it's really pushing me into a very positive direction. And I don't think, because writing is a very solitary practice, in my opinion. If you've got people coming at you and distracting you, it's probably not going to be as compelling.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure you have some me time. You need it.
Yeah, definitely. Now, there at the beginning of your videos, you have an interesting song that plays. Is that
Oh, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up.
yeah, is that an
There's
original
three
piece?
different people living inside of me.
Yeah.
It's by Seal. It's called Padded
Oh,
Cell. And the best part about it, nobody uses it. I actually found a song I like, and I've never seen a single YouTuber actually use it on their
yeah.
videos.
Yeah, I
It's
hadn't
beautiful.
actually heard it before watching your videos, and it's a really good song.
It's good, isn't it? You should actually. It would probably work for your old name, Psycho
Yeah.
Source, because there's a particular lyric in that. It says, "Don't talk to him because he's psycho,"
Yeah.
and I think that would work so well for you. But yeah, that song speaks to me because there are a million different people inside of me, and you could look at that and say that's psychological, that's spirits.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it matters, but
Right.
there's so many different directions that I'm going in. So many thoughts. My mind is constantly racing. I'm always thinking about stuff. I'm always amped up.
Mm-hmm.
And that song is just, it's got the perfect beat to get my viewers in the mood for what's coming, with me sitting on the throne. And they love it. You know, it's very unique. It's not something that a lot of people look at and they'll say, wow, this is just so odd and strange, but it works.
Yeah, I like the visuals you did for the. You have a video on your channel that has the full, like a full video for the song.
Yes, I made all that
Yeah.
because and
Yeah.
I sit for hours and days at a time. I go nuts in my mind. I have the song blasting out. I look like a mad professor, and I'm
Mm.
sitting there and I'm doing this, and I lose myself so deeply in that.
Yeah.
And it's bliss. It is, oh, it's absolute heaven for me to lose myself in my creative projects. And I go wild, you know, give myself extra arms, extra
Yep.
eyes.
Yeah.
Oh, why not? You only live once. Get on with it, you know? Yeah.
That's why I really dug the visuals because I love especially the extra eyes. I was just like, this is awesome.
Did you like that? Oh,
Mhm.
thank you very much. I appreciate that. It's very kind of you. Is that something that you would consider doing? Maybe having some more extreme editing in your clips?
Maybe it's mostly a time constraint on my side, but again, that's because I am still plugged into that 9 to 5 as well.
Are you?
Hmm.
All right. I see. Oh, interesting.
Delicate
But don't
balance.
worry. I think you'll get out. I really believe that. I think you'll get out of it and come out on top. Some people like a 9 to 5. It gives them a purpose. But for me, I'm just not compatible with it.
I find it more like a means to an end than to a purpose, but I'm able to, because of the nature of my job, I'm able to pretty much be myself even at work, so it doesn't hinder me the way it does for other people. But I had to get to a point where I had a job that was like that. So even though I didn't leave the 9 to 5 world, I wasn't happy when I was in what would typically be the type of jobs other people had.
Right. Interesting. And what would you do if you had unlimited free time? What would you do?
I would do more practice probably. I'd probably just practice a lot more magic. And
Because I
I'd write a lot more too.
have, this is going to sound nuts, but I have all the time in the world to do whatever I wish. And that's why I am the way I am. That's why I'm so extreme, because I can do it. I can really live it.
Yeah.
And, it's like heaven to me doing that. I was really born into the right life. Although I had a pretty rough and somewhat ordinary life before I had my spiritual awakening, I realized that was essential.
Yeah.
It's leading up to something much better in the long run.
Mhm.
Definitely.
Now I found that in working with different people who view the occult differently, who have different paths, that while I'm big on balance, I don't feel like our balance point is always the same, and I think that's on purpose. That we're
Yeah.
each unique to a certain degree, and we have to find a balance within ourselves and not worry so much about balance across the board. Would you say that
Yeah,
that's
the
true?
pendulum swings both ways, doesn't it? Yeah, of course. And I think people need to realize that as well, that it's very important that you don't stay white or black. You don't stay in those zones. You go across, flow, like a boat rocking. You've got to do it.
Yeah.
And if you do that, you'll be more at peace, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But the feeling I get, I got to describe this to the viewers. When I'm on my 7-star altar, and I can see the clouds changing visibly, and I can feel the wind picking up, because I got really long hair on purpose to feel the wind blowing, and it looks so epic on videos too. And the robes are blowing, and I can hear the thunder. It's like in that moment, I know what I'm doing is what I'm supposed to be doing. and I feel 100% fulfilled in that moment. Now, when I go away from the altar, it kind of goes away, but it's so bliss. It's incredible, and I want people out there to experience that, because weather magic is a dying art.
Hmm.
It's so obscure, and it shouldn't be that way. So please, if you love the feeling of getting rewarded from your practice, try weather magic. It's very rewarding for the soul and the body, I would say.
Yeah, and I've talked about this on a couple of videos lately, but I had a video a while back where I had tried to claim that energy work wasn't about a physical energy, and well, now I have to eat those words because I've
Oh, you do? Just like me with the power of color then. Yeah.
uh, where I haven't taken that video down because it's part of my progress.
Right.
It's still got valuable information in there too, because I think for someone starting out, the methods I talk about in there still work. But now that I've had the path I've had for the past year, I definitely feel something that I can't describe as just bodily movement or as imagination or whatever. There's something that I can't think of a better word than energy to describe. So I just have to
Right.
finally accept and stop pushing that word away. But a lot of my understanding, a lot of Eastern magic involves feeling of energy and things too. So is that the
Chi.
true? Yeah. Is that,
Chi. And I think that I watched a video on a Westerner's opinion on weather magic, and they said that weather magic is the most silly form of magic that exists. And I was thinking, why are you saying this? Why are you going out of your way to disrupt an already unpopular form of magic? And
mhm.
we don't want people hurting it or harming it in that sense, because it's not popular. And the average magician is never really going to practice it. So I think when it comes to the opinions of a lot of the YouTube occultists, don't always take them literally. Use your own intuition, use your own guidance that you've got.
Yeah.
And it's quite depressing to see people pull things down they don't have much understanding of, at least to me.
Yeah,
But
I
I
would
would
agree with that. It's especially
it's
funny in
like,
this community.
but I would say that I am probably the most experienced Taoist practitioner in the Western world. I would go as far as to say that. And if there's someone else out there watching, please get in touch with me. Oh my God, I would love it. My Skype is Lord Josh Allen. And if you're a weather magician or you want to get into it, I will personally assist you in that, because I want a partner. I want someone to talk to about this kind of thing, because it's so damn obscure. Nobody knows anything about it. So I really want to connect with that weather magic community for the Taoist side.
Well, and that's actually, as we're coming up to a little past 50 minutes, it's actually a perfect note to end on, is a call
Yeah,
to action then for weather magic.
yes. So definitely, please do that, everybody. Add my Skype, Lord Josh Allen. Contact me. I'll help you out. I promise. I'll be there for you to do that, because I really believe this is my calling in life,
Hmm.
is to make this form of magic more popular, and also to bring awareness to Zhuge Liang in the Western world and his incredible achievements that he had in his life. And that's all I have to say about that.
Hmm. And for those interested in your YouTube channel, can you provide it one more time?
Yes, it's Lamat771, and all of my social media accounts are Lord Josh Allen.
And I'll be putting links in the description section when this goes up.
Good stuff. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate that.
Well, thanks for coming on, and I'm sure we'll talk again.
Yes, we definitely will. Thank you, Joe. I appreciate it.
Hmm.
Thank you so much.
Until next time, safe travels.